All right, this much you can get pretty much an agreement on. Few Americans seem overly pleased by the state of public education in America, but of course, there's little agreement when it comes to how you actually fix it. Recently, Common Core has been getting attention. Now, if you don't know what it is, you don't got kids, because certainly every parent has struggled with this thing. It's got a set of standards that educators and students must meet in math and in English as established by the Education Department, state governors, and state education departments. Common Core also relies on standardized tests, but not everybody, and that's putting it mildly, is happy with Common Core. It's a series of protests by parents just last month made that point crystal clear, that some parents kept their kids even home for a day to make their unhappiness known. All right, Ron, you're on the front lines of this. We can debate the esoterics of it, but on the front lines of it, it seemed to have a noble intent, which was you're going to have standards at least, because we remembered everything about where the kids just got pushed through. Every school would at least have the same standards so that we could catch up with the world, and then secondarily, we at least would have a measuring stick to see how the different schools were going. I know you're not crazy about it, so where did it go wrong from the intent to the implementation?
For example, in New York State, the implementation is totally askew. But that comes from the inexperience of the person leading us, who has no real experience in education, our commissioner. Now, having said that, there is no one-size-fits-all for American education. That's true. And when we say now we're going to have standards, implying that we didn't have them before. For many school districts, the set of standards that are envisioned by Common Core are a step down, not a step up. Common Core may be good for Mississippi. It may be good for West Virginia. It may be good for many poor urban areas. But in Westchester County, getting Common Core is like taking away a Rolls Royce from everybody and giving them a 1957 car that doesn't work.
Probably a collectible, though.
Did you hear the same thing about No Child Left Behind? I mean, that was the last big federal push on education.
There is no difference between No Child with a behind and Race to the Bottom. They are both the same thing. Let's have more charter schools and vouchers as a way to resegregate American public education and to make some of the corporations make billions of dollars by giving tests. The good thing about Common Core is it started with even the Tea Party being against it. So here we have a chance for the left and the right to come together over a common issue.
Why does Washington think it can tell everybody in the country
what
their standard test should be?
Remember when the mayor first came in, mayor control, what did they find, right? They found the kids were getting pushed in the worst school districts, and everyone said, hold on, a lot of these kids can't even read. What are we doing?
Social promotion.
Right, we had social promotion, thank you. So we got to figure out something so at least we know the kids are learning something and that we can grade the schools to see how they're doing. Now, I'm not going to presume to say they did it right or whatever else, but if you don't have something, how do we know that in your district, if you're doing it the right way, that the district next, they're not pushing kids through that just aren't ready to meet the challenges of the world? Don't we need a standard to measure them by?
Quickly, 2 seconds to just knock yours out. The only thing worse than social promotion is holding the kids back. But now back to what we were saying, don't we have standards? We've always had standards. That's how we became and still are the #1 economic system in the world.
But we are falling behind, aren't we?
The closest one to us behind us now may be China. And in terms of U.S. patents, which is a measure of creativity and ingenuity, the next, we go from, let's say 1,000 to the next about 150 down behind us. No one is there with our creativity. I want to bring up what the Minister of Education of China said about a year and a half ago when they went to the top. He said, if we continue doing what we're doing in terms of testing, we will never have a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs. They are trying to do the very opposite. They were trying to turn their system into what America had.
And that's what he said, the creativity and the entrepreneurial spirit.
That's what will keep us
However,
ahead.
you look at what we used to produce in terms of engineers on an annual basis, especially in the digital age, versus where we are now versus China and everyone else. no one disputes that we're falling behind.
We are not. That is a part of the big lie. We are not turning out less engineers. Now, look at American engineers. Some of them, just like most of the college people today, are having a hard time finding a job. Not because we're turning out less engineers. In the last 3 years, each of the last 3 years, overall, American students who study and graduate with an engineering degree has gone up. But the reason why the employment has gone down, because it is cheaper to pay a kid from India or someplace else $60,000 than it is to pay that American students. Our corporations do a good job of telling a lie about we're not turning out students.
Then tell me, since John can agree that the same problems, at least I think, is what the biggest problems that you face. Use your district, but you've been in more than one district before.
Absolutely.
What are
But
some
I'll
of the
use
biggest problems, especially in some of the urban schools that we face, and what is the answer?
In Greenberg, for example, I have kids that I know in the last couple of years for graduation present, their parents have sent them to France or sent them to the Caribbean. But I also have students who I know are living in a hotel because they are sheltered. You're asking me what the biggest problem is? Here's what the biggest problem is, not just in Greenberg or Yonkers or New York City, but in America. It is poverty. And what do I mean by that? At the beginning of the day, when those children come to kindergarten, they are already behind. They have a vocabulary of several thousand words less. They are able to get through the first grade, or the second grade, or the third grade. I use this, and I'm not going to use educational jargon that you don't understand. For the first 3 years, we teach children, they have to learn how to read. After that, by the time you get to the 4th or 5th grade, for the rest of your life, you're not learning how to read. You're reading to learn. Learn how to read, then read for the rest of your life, you read to learn. And that's where that gap between those who come prepared, generally with two parents, college-educated people who are talking to their children differently. Yes, I'm stereotyping for a little bit, so write in your letters and complain. But you know, those
Take
who
to Twitter now. Forget the letters.
those who, let's say, have not graduated, you know, from college, who maybe this is the first one to graduate from high school, the vocabulary of the children they are raising
So is
are
that on
going
the
to
parents?
be left. Of course it starts in the home before you ever come to school. Schools can only do so much. If the foundation is not there, and if people don't value education and see it as a way out, then of course there's only so much a teacher can do. And what we try to do is, for every 1,000 students, let's pull out that one teacher, you know, who was a success with this kid, who didn't have anything, stayed up at night by candlelight like Abraham Lincoln, and graduated at the first of the class. That is the exception, not the rule. And until we deal with poverty in this country, of feeding kids who come to school, who are prepared, we will not close the education gap.
You have helped me with the segue, because a little bit later in the program, we're going to be talking about 3 issues that are before Washington right now, whether it's extending unemployment insurance, it's minimum wage here, it's food stamps. These are decisions that play into the growing population, if I could get that out. But that coming up in a couple of seconds. When we come back, though, this is one that's making its way in New York, but trust me, I think you're going to see this playing out in a national landscape. What's one thing everybody hates to do? Pay property taxes, right? Well, directed taxes, get ready for that phrase. Letting people pick where their tax dollars are going, and what's the best way to run a school district? Is it mayoral control, elected school boards? Maybe Ron Ross being in charge of everything? We'll find out on that and more after this.